Fleet Commander Marcus stood at the main viewport of his command ship, his 4 eyes fixed on the endless darkness ahead. Where there should have been a clear path through space, a strange shimmer distorted the starfield. His fleet of 300 ships, carrying over 1 million of his people, had been trapped in this region for 3 days now. "Commander," his navigation officer called out, "we've lost another guidance system. That's the 15th ship this hour." The officer's skin had turned a pale blue, a clear sign of stress among their species. Marcus moved away from the viewport, his long robes swishing against the polished floor. "Show me the latest readings," he said, keeping his voice steady despite the growing knot in his stomach. As the leader of the largest refugee fleet in their civilization's history, he couldn't show fear. The main screen lit up with streams of data. Their quantum navigation systems were failing one by one, rendered useless by whatever strange anomaly surrounded them. The backup systems, based on the same technology, were equally worthless. Without functioning nav systems, the ships couldn't plot safe courses through space. They were essentially blind. "Sir," his resource manager approached, holding a datapad. "At our current rate of power consumption, we have enough supplies for 12 days. Maybe 15 if we start shutting down non-essential systems." Marcus nodded slowly. 15 days. 2 weeks to find a solution before his people would start dying. The fleet carried families, children, their civilization's brightest minds, all fleeing from the devastating war that had consumed their home systems. They had thought they'd found a safe path through this sector, but instead they'd wandered into what felt like a trap. "What about the emergency quantum beacons?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "Useless, sir. Whatever's affecting our nav systems blocks all quantum-based communication. We can't even signal between ships without using light signals." Marcus was about to respond when another officer burst onto the bridge. "Commander, we've detected something." The young officer's skin rippled with excitement patterns. Well, you need to see this." The main screen shifted to show a new reading. Among the usual background noise of space, there was a clear signal. Not quantum-based like their own technology, but something far simpler, radio waves. "Where is it coming from?" Marcus asked, leaning forward. The officer pointed to a distant star. "There, about 2 light years from our position. The signal is primitive, extremely primitive, but it's passing through the anomaly without any disruption." Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. "Show me the source." The screen zoomed in on a small solar system. The third planet from its sun was blue and green, covered in swirling white clouds. The source of the radio waves. "It's inhabited," his science officer reported. "The species appears to be in their early space age. They've reached their moon, sent some basic probes to nearby planets, but they haven't achieved faster than light travel yet." Marcus watched the planet spin slowly on the screen. A primitive civilization, yes, but one whose technology seemed unaffected by whatever was trapping his fleet. The choice before him was clear, but difficult. Their laws strictly prohibited contact with developing species. It was considered one of their highest moral duties to let younger civilizations develop naturally. But his people were dying. "Prepare a message," he ordered. "Use their radio wavelengths. Keep it simple. They won't have universal translators." "Sir," his first officer stepped forward, skin showing patches of concern. "The Council's laws will mean nothing if we're all dead." Marcus cut him off. "Sometimes survival must come before principle. Send the message. Tell them we need help." The bridge crew worked quickly, converting their distress call into primitive radio signals. Marcus watched as the message was sent, traveling through space at the speed of light toward the blue planet. "Now," he said quietly, "we wait, and hope these primitives are clever enough to understand us, and willing to help." He turned back to the viewport, watching the strange shimmer that had trapped them. In the distance, the blue planet's star shone steadily. Their fate now rested in the hands of a species that hadn't even left their own solar system. Marcus could only hope it wasn't a mistake. The message arrived at Earth's Deep Space Listening Station in New Mexico at 3:47 a.m. local time. Bill Thompson, the night shift operator, nearly spilled his coffee when the computers started beeping. At first, he thought it was a glitch. In 20 years of listening to space, he'd heard nothing but random noise and the occasional pulsar. But this was different. This was a pattern. Within an hour, every major radio telescope on Earth was pointed at the same spot in space. The message repeated every 12 minutes, a series of mathematical sequences followed by something that could only be a distress signal. Tom Wilson was woken by his phone ringing at 5 a.m. As one of NASA's top engineers and an expert in space communication, he'd dealt with many emergencies over his 30-year career, but none like this. "You need to see this," his boss said when Tom arrived at the control center. The room was packed with scientists and military officials, all staring at screens showing the alien signal. "It's real, Tom. We've checked everything. Triple-checked it. This is first contact." Tom studied the message pattern on the main screen. The mathematical part was clever, basic equations that proved the sender's intelligence. But the distress signal was what caught his attention. It showed a massive fleet of ships, trapped in what looked like some kind of spatial distortion. "They're stuck," Tom said, pointing to the repeating patterns. "See these energy readings? Their systems are failing. Whatever's trapped them is interfering with their technology." The next few hours were chaos. The president was briefed. The UN Security Council held an emergency session. China, Russia, and the U.S. all agreed to share data for the first time in years. This was bigger than national interests. This was about humanity's first alien contact. Tom led the team trying to decode more details from the message. By evening, they had figured out the basics. 300 ships, over 1 million aliens, and only 2 weeks of supplies left. "The strange thing is," Tom told the emergency committee, "their technology seems far more advanced than ours. But whatever's trapped them affects complex systems. Their quantum technology is useless there." "And our technology?" asked General Roberts, who'd been put in charge of the response. Tom allowed himself a small smile. "That's the interesting part. Our primitive radio signals are passing through the anomaly just fine. Simple technology might be the key to helping them." The committee room erupted in discussion. Some wanted to ignore the message, fearing alien contact. Others wanted to help but didn't know how. A few wondered if it was a trick. "Look," Tom said, raising his voice above the argument. "They're advanced enough to cross galaxies, but they chose to ask us for help. They're desperate. And sometimes, older technology works when newer stuff fails, like using a paper map when your GPS dies." The general nodded slowly. "What do you propose?" "Give me 2 weeks. Let me put together a team. Engineers, astronomers, old-school navigators, people who know how to work without fancy computers. We'll take our new long-range ship, but we'll outfit it with backup systems based on older technology." "The frontier isn't ready for deep space," someone objected. "It was meant for Mars missions." "It's all we've got," Tom replied. "And it's got something those alien ships don't. Simple, reliable systems that might just work where their advanced tech fails." The room fell silent. Finally, the general spoke. "You have 1 week to prepare. Choose your team. We'll send a response telling them help is coming." As Tom left the room, his mind was already racing with plans. Humanity's first mission to save an alien civilization would rely not on advanced technology, but on the basics, the fundamental skills that humans had used to navigate for centuries. He smiled to himself. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Now they just had to prove it to an advanced alien civilization. Tom stood in the hangar of NASA's main facility, looking up at the spacecraft frontier. Workers swarmed around it like bees, stripping out the newest navigation systems and replacing them with older, simpler technology. They had 5 days left before launch. "It feels wrong," said Mike. his chief engineer, watching as they removed a quantum positioning system. Like we're going backwards instead of forwards. Tom shook his head. Sometimes backwards is the way forward. He held up an old sextant, the kind sailors had used for centuries to navigate by the stars. This can't be hacked, jammed, or disrupted by spatial anomalies. It just works. His team of 12 had been chosen carefully. Linda, an astronomer who could navigate by starlight alone. Jack, a radio expert who understood signals better than any computer. Robert, who could fix anything with basic tools and raw materials. Each person was picked not just for their skills, but for their ability to think simply and solve problems with limited resources. The aliens won't like it, Mike said, checking something off his clipboard. They'll probably think we're cavemen. Maybe, Tom agreed, but cavemen who might save their lives. The next few days were a blur of preparation. They loaded the ship with paper star charts, mechanical backup systems, and tools that hadn't been used in space for decades. Everything was triple-checked. They couldn't afford mistakes, not with 1 million alien lives at stake. On the 4th day, they received another message from the alien fleet. Their situation was getting worse. 30 ships had now lost all power, and they were running out of supplies faster than expected. Tom called his team together in the briefing room. Star charts and technical diagrams covered the walls. A hologram of the spatial anomaly floated above the central table. "Here's what we know," he said, pointing to the hologram. "The aliens are trapped in a region of space that disrupts advanced technology. Their quantum systems are useless, but our basic radio waves pass through just fine. That's our key." He spread out a paper star chart. "We'll navigate the old way. Sextants, star charts, and basic trigonometry. Linda will be our primary navigator. Jack will handle communications. We're bringing a modified radio system that should let us talk to the alien fleet." "What if we get trapped too?" asked Robert, the mechanic. "That's why everything on this mission has a mechanical backup," Tom explained. "If our main systems fail, we can run the entire ship on technology that would have been familiar to engineers 50 years ago." He picked up a manual compass. The aliens built their civilization on quantum technology. They never needed to develop these basic tools because their advanced systems worked perfectly, until now. But humans, we keep our old tools. We remember the old ways. That's what makes us different. The team spent their last day running drills. They practiced using sextants in the simulator. They memorized star patterns. They learned to navigate with nothing but basic instruments and their own minds. Finally, launch day arrived. The Frontier stood ready on the pad, steam venting from its sides. It looked strange with its mixture of old and new technology. Digital displays next to analog gauges, modern engines with mechanical backups. Just before boarding, General Roberts pulled Tom aside. "The President wanted me to tell you something," he said. "Whatever happens up there, you've already made history. First contact with an alien civilization, and they came to us for help." Tom nodded. "We won't let them down." As they boarded the ship, Tom thought about the irony of their mission. Humanity had always dreamed of meeting advanced aliens who would share their technology. Instead, they were about to share their primitive technology with aliens who desperately needed it. The countdown began. Tom looked at his team, each person focused on their stations. They were about to attempt something unprecedented, saving an advanced civilization with basic human ingenuity. "Ready for launch," he said into his headset. "Let's go make history." After 3 days of travel, they saw it. The alien fleet, 300 massive ships scattered across space like silver islands in a dark sea. The sight took everyone's breath away. Each ship was at least 10 times larger than the Frontier, their hulls gleaming despite the strange distortion that surrounded them. "Look at the size of those things," whispered Jack from his communication station. "Makes our ship look like a rowboat." "A rowboat that still works," Tom reminded him. He turned to Linda at navigation. "Status." She checked her instruments, both old and new. The distortion field is affecting our modern systems, just as we expected. Switching to backup navigation, her fingers moved confidently over the manual controls as she used the sextant to check their position against the star charts. Opening communications, Jack announced. He adjusted the radio frequency they'd been using to communicate with the fleet. "This is Earth Vessel Frontier calling Alien Fleet. We are here to help. Please respond." For a long moment, there was only static. Then a voice came through, speaking in carefully practiced English. "Earth Vessel, this is Fleet Commander Marcus. Your arrival is unexpected. We thought your ship would be larger." Tom smiled as he took the radio. "Sometimes good things come in small packages, Commander. Request permission to dock with your command ship." There was a pause, then, "Permission granted. Though I must warn you, our docking systems are not functioning correctly." "No problem," Tom replied. "We'll do it manually." Robert took control of the ship, using nothing but visual cues and basic thrusters to guide them toward the massive alien command ship. It was like parking a car next to a skyscraper, but Robert's steady hands never wavered. As they approached, they could see the alien crew watching them through viewports. Tall figures with multiple eyes, their skin shifting colors with what might have been emotion. The docking took 20 minutes. Robert ignored the automated systems entirely, relying on hand controls and Mark's visual guidance from the observation deck. When the airlock finally sealed with a solid clunk, everyone let out a breath they hadn't realized they were holding. Commander Marcus met them at the airlock. He was nearly 8 feet tall, his skin a swirling pattern of blue and green, all 4 eyes studying them intently. Behind him stood his officers, each holding various devices that Tom assumed were meant to be translators, all dark and useless in the anomaly. "Welcome aboard," Marcus said slowly, clearly struggling with the English words they'd sent in their transmissions. "Though I must admit, your methods of arrival were surprising." Tom stepped forward. "Sometimes the old ways work best, Commander. We've brought equipment and knowledge that might help your fleet navigate through this anomaly." He gestured to his team, who were already unloading crates of equipment, sextants, manual calculators, paper charts, and basic radio sets. The alien officers stared at these simple tools with what looked like confusion, or possibly dismay. "These are primitive instruments," one of the alien officers said. "Primitive but reliable," Linda replied as she set up a plotting table. "Your quantum systems are being disrupted, but stars don't lie. We can teach you how to navigate by starlight, just like our ancestors did. You want us to navigate a space fleet using string and glass?" Another officer asked, pointing at the sextant. "Unless you prefer to stay trapped here," Tom said quietly. Commander Marcus raised a hand, silencing his officers' murmurs. "We have 10 days of supplies remaining. Our systems are failing faster than expected. If Earth believes these methods will work." He straightened to his full height. "Teach us." Tom nodded to his team. They began setting up their equipment, displaying star charts, and preparing to instruct the advanced alien civilization in the basics of manual space navigation. It was perhaps the strangest classroom ever assembled. Humans teaching aliens how to use tools that were centuries old by their standards. "First lesson," Linda announced, holding up a sextant. "How to find your position in space using nothing but starlight and simple math." 3 days into teaching the aliens, disaster struck. Tom was explaining the basics of radio wave propagation when the emergency alarm started blaring throughout the command ship. The sound was alien, but the meaning was clear. Something had gone very wrong. "Commander." An alien officer burst onto the bridge, their skin flashing rapid patterns of red and black. "The anomaly. It's expanding." Everyone rushed to the viewport. The strange shimmer in space that had trapped the fleet was indeed growing larger, its edges pushing outward like ripples in a pond. As they watched, one of the outer ships was engulfed by the expanding field. Its lights flickered and died. "Power loss in sectors 7 through 12, reported another officer. 5 more ships have gone dark. Commander Marcus's skin had turned a deep gray. How many people on those ships? Nearly 50,000, sir. Tom grabbed his handheld radio, one of the few devices still working reliably. Robert, Jack, get to those ships. Show them how to switch to manual life support systems. He turned to Linda. Start plotting escape vectors for the fleet using celestial navigation. We need to get these ships moving before more people die. The next few hours were chaos. The human team split up, each racing to different ships to help where they could. Robert managed to get 3 ships back on emergency power using nothing but basic electrical systems. Jack rigged up a network of simple radio transmitters to keep the fleet in communication. Linda worked furiously with her alien students, teaching them how to plot courses without computers. But it wasn't enough. The anomaly kept growing. Tom stayed on the command ship with Marcus, analyzing data from the expanding field. Something about it bothered him. The pattern was too regular, too precise. "Commander," he said suddenly, "has your civilization encountered anything like this before?" Marcus hesitated. "There are stories, ancient warnings about regions of space that trapped the unwary. We thought they were myths." "Not myths," Tom said, pointing to the pattern analysis he'd sketched on paper. "Look at these energy readings. They're periodic, synchronized. This isn't a natural phenomenon. It's artificial. A trap, just like you said." Marcus's 4 eyes widened. A trap? But who would build such a thing? And why? "Maybe it's like an ancient security system," Tom suggested. "Or a way to catch advanced ships. The real question is, if it's a machine, can we turn it off?" He spread out his notes on a table. The pattern was becoming clearer. Pulses of energy that disrupted advanced technology while leaving simpler systems untouched. It reminded him of something. "An EMP," he muttered. "It's like a massive, continuous electromagnetic pulse, but targeted at quantum systems." "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked, leaning over the papers. "Your ships still have power. They just can't use their advanced systems. But what if we could use that power differently?" Tom's mind was racing. "If we modify our radio equipment to channel the energy from your ship's reactors, we might be able to create a counterpulse," Marcus finished, his skin brightening with understanding. "Exactly. Fight fire with fire. But it would take every ship working together, perfectly synchronized. One mistake, and we could overload every reactor in the fleet," Marcus said grimly. "Over 1 million lives, depending on the accuracy of primitive human technology." Tom nodded. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most dangerous ones." The commander was quiet for a long moment, watching his fleet through the viewport. More ships were losing power by the hour. The anomaly's edge was creeping closer to the center of the fleet where the command ship waited. Finally, Marcus turned to Tom, his skin showing a pattern that humans had never seen before. "How long to modify the radio equipment?" 2 hours, maybe 3. "And the chances of success?" Tom met the alien's 4-eyed gaze steadily. "If we do nothing, everybody dies. If we try this, we might save everyone, or kill them faster. Your choice, Commander." Marcus looked once more at his dying fleet. "Begin the modifications, and pray your primitive technology is as reliable as you claim." Time was running out. Tom and his team worked frantically to modify the radio equipment, while the alien engineers prepared their ship's power systems. They had one chance to get this right. "Basic physics," Tom explained to Commander Marcus, as they watched Robert install the modified radio transmitter. "Your quantum systems are too complex to work in the anomaly, but they still produce power. We're going to use that power in the simplest way possible, one massive burst of energy, directed through our radio transmitters. Like turning a sophisticated weapon into a primitive bomb," Marcus observed, his skin shifting to a thoughtful purple. "Exactly. Sometimes brute force works better than precision." Jack's voice crackled over the radio. "All ships report ready. Basic transmitters installed and connected to power systems. Linda added from her position at navigation, "I've calculated the focus point. If we're right about this being artificial, that's where the control system should be." Tom looked at Marcus. The alien commander stood quietly for a moment, then spoke to his fleet over the emergency radio network they'd set up. "My people," he said, his voice translated into multiple languages by human radio operators. "We face a choice between certain death and a dangerous chance at survival. The humans have shown us that sometimes the old ways, the simple ways, are the best ways. Trust in their plan. Trust in their primitive but reliable technology. Prepare for synchronized power transfer on my mark." Tom touched the modified radio control panel. Everything they'd built was based on technology that was ancient by alien standards. Simple circuits, basic radio waves, manual controls. No quantum systems, no AI assistance, nothing that could be affected by the anomaly. "All ships, begin power transfer sequence," Tom ordered. "Remember, timing is everything. Too slow, nothing happens. Too fast, we overload and—" He didn't need to finish the sentence. The lights dimmed throughout the fleet as power was diverted to the radio transmitters. On the command ship's screens, power readings began to climb. 20%, 40%, 60%. Warning alarms blared as the ship's reactors were pushed beyond their normal limits. The anomaly seemed to pulse, as if sensing their attempt to fight back. 80% power, Jack reported, his voice tense. "Some of the outer ships are showing signs of reactor strain." "Hold steady," Tom commanded. "Just a few more seconds." 90%. The ship began to vibrate. Through the viewport, they could see other ships glowing with contained energy, like stars about to go nova. 95%. "Maximum power reached," Jack shouted. "It's now or never." Tom looked at Marcus. The alien commander nodded. "All ships, transmit." Tom slammed his hand down on the activation switch. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the entire fleet lit up like a constellation, each ship releasing its stored power through the modified radio transmitters. The energy beams converged at the calculated focus point, right at the heart of the anomaly. The ship's structure groaned under the strain. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Through the viewport, the anomaly's shimmer began to ripple violently. "Power systems critical." An alien officer shouted, "We can't maintain this level of output." "Just a few more seconds." Tom gritted through clenched teeth. "The pattern is destabilizing." The anomaly's shimmer began to collapse inward, like a soap bubble imploding. The space around them warped and twisted. "All ships, cut power now," Tom ordered. The energy beams stopped. For a moment, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a flash of light that forced everyone to shield their eyes, the anomaly collapsed in on itself and vanished. As the light faded, Tom blinked spots from his eyes and looked at the screens. The quantum interference was gone. Space around them had returned to normal. Jack's excited voice came over the radio. "Ships reporting in. Quantum systems coming back online. We did it." A cheer went up from both humans and aliens on the bridge. Commander Marcus's skin rippled with patterns of joy and relief. "It worked," he said, placing a long-fingered hand on Tom's shoulder. "Your primitive solution actually worked." Tom smiled tiredly. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right answer. "Now, let's get your people home." But as he watched the fleet's systems coming back online, a new worry nagged at him. If this was an artificial trap, who had built it? And were there more out there, waiting for unwary travelers? Those questions would have to wait. For now, they had a fleet to save, and a lot of repair work ahead of them. 1 month after the destruction of the anomaly, the Frontier approached Earth, escorted by 3 massive alien ships. The rest of the fleet had continued their journey home, but Commander Marcus insisted on personally accompanying the humans back to their planet. As they entered Earth's solar system, Tom stood with Marcus on the command ship's bridge, watching the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. The alien commander's skin showed swirling patterns of gold and silver, colors Tom had learned meant deep respect. "Your world looks so small," Marcus said. "When we first detected your radio signals, we thought you were barely worth contacting." How wrong we were. Tom smiled. "Size isn't everything. Sometimes being small means you have to be clever." Indeed. Marcus gestured to a group of alien officers working nearby. They were using both quantum computers and simple manual instruments, practicing with the hybrid navigation system that had been developed during their time together. "You've changed how we think about technology. My people had forgotten something important, that newer isn't always better." The radio crackled with messages from Earth. Every nation wanted to speak with the aliens. Scientists were desperate to study their technology. But Marcus had something else in mind. "We've transmitted the coordinates of these spatial traps to your governments," he said. "Our long-range scans have detected at least 20 more throughout this sector of space. Someone, sometime in the ancient past, created them as a way to trap advanced ships. Like highway robbers setting up roadblocks," Tom nodded. "But they never counted on someone coming along with older technology. Which is why," Marcus continued, "the Council has approved something unprecedented. We want to establish a permanent alliance with Earth. Not just cultural exchange, but technological cooperation." Tom raised his eyebrows. "I thought your laws prevented sharing advanced technology with developing races." Marcus's skin rippled with amusement. "The laws prevent us from simply giving technology to younger races, but working together, learning from each other. That's different." He paused. "Besides, after what happened, I don't think anyone can call humans a primitive species anymore." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. The alien ships caused quite a stir hanging in orbit around Earth, visible to everyone with a telescope. World leaders gathered to meet with Marcus and his officers. Agreements were signed. Plans were made. On their last day, Commander Marcus presented a special gift to Tom and his team. It was a small crystal cube that projected a hologram of the entire fleet. "This will be displayed in our Hall of Heroes," Marcus explained. The story of how a small human ship with simple technology saved over 1 million lives. It will remind future generations that progress isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes it's about remembering where you came from. As the alien ships prepared to depart, Tom stood with his team at the main viewing window of the International Space Station. Linda held her old sextant, now marked with alien script where the crew had signed it like a yearbook. Jack clutched a crystal data storage device containing communications protocols for future contact. Robert had a piece of alien engine technology he was already trying to reverse engineer. "Think we'll see them again?" Linda asked as the massive ships lifted out of orbit. "Count on it," Tom replied. "We've got too much to learn from each other." The alien ships rose higher, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Just before they jumped to faster-than-light speed, they performed one last maneuver, arranging themselves in a triangle formation that every sailor on Earth would recognize as a traditional farewell salute. Tom smiled. The aliens had learned more than just how to use old technology. They'd learned that sometimes the oldest traditions were the best ones. As the ships vanished into the depths of space, Tom thought about how much humanity had gained from this encounter. Not just the promise of advanced technology or alien alliance, but something more important, the confidence that humans had something valuable to teach the galaxy. Sometimes, he realized, you had to look backward to move forward. And sometimes the simplest solutions were the ones that worked best, no matter how advanced you became. In the years that followed, human ingenuity and alien technology would combine to create wonders. But it all started with an old sextant, basic radio waves, and the human drive to solve problems with whatever tools were at hand. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would humanity.